Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and professional writing needs. You can always find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. Momentarily, I will be joined by Mark Osborne for a discussion on growing without blowing your budget. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits, as well as high-net-worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at info@pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Bruce. It's a real pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is mine. Before we get started, please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Absolutely. So my name's Mark. I'm the founder and lead strategist at Modern Revenue Strategies, where we work with B2B companies that are typically dealing with long, complex sales cycles and really sort of complex buying committees where you might have a decision maker and a champion and a technical influencer for businesses that are trying to close sort of large scale contracts. And so typically we're working with B2B services, SaaS companies, other technology firms to help them build systems to attract more of the right prospects, accelerate opportunities through the sales pipeline, and activate existing clients for more renewals, upsells, and referrals. And we offer what we like to call our 10x ROI B2B Growth Guarantee, where typically our clients will see a 10x return on their investment with us within about 90 days.
Very nice. I'm going to ask you a question that may seem strange.
Sure.
But I'm going to ask it because I work with a lot of individuals who are looking for a job. And the one question they ask me is, what salary do they need? And I always say, I have no idea what salary you need. Don't you have a budget? And invariably, no one has a budget. And what shocks me is that there are some business owners who don't have budgets. And they're shocked that I'm shocked. What do I need a budget for? I see how much money I have in the bank and I spend accordingly. What's the importance of a budget?
Well, I mean, for starters, it gives you, guardrails on, where you can go and how you're going to get there. And there's an old adage that if you don't know where you're going, you'll never know when you get there. And I think budgets are a good way of sort of imposing some criteria, some parameters that force creativity. And oftentimes, if you sort of operate from a mindset of kind of unlimited budget, well, then you'll try everything. Whereas instead of being forced to really think through what's the thing that's most likely to have the strongest return on investment for, sort of making those strategic decisions around where to invest your finite resources. And that's what we really work with companies to help them prioritize. Where are they likely to see the strongest return on investment? Is it around attracting more of the right prospects? Is it around accelerating existing deals through the sales pipeline or activating your current clients for more renewals, upsells, and referrals? By identifying where the fastest path to growth is, then you can invest your time, your money, or staff and hire against those objectives to really see the best possible outcomes that come from that. But that all comes from working within a budget to prioritize projects.
I commend you for a highly intelligent answer to a really stupid question, but I thought it needed to be asked. I am reminded of the time when I worked at a nonprofit nursing home and walked by the CEO's office, and the chairman of the board was there, and he invited me in. And they were going over the budget. And I had never seen the budget. I had no idea what was in the budget. You're flashing on and off.
Yeah, I seem to have had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but I think I'm back now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you and I can see you fine. Okay.
Great.
So this was the first time I had seen the budget. If I remember correctly, the overall budget was $47 million. And the budget for medication, remember this was a nursing home, was something like $40 million. I mean, it was just astronomical. And I was shocked. And I had and they said, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Well, it's whatever the government will pay. That's what the government pays. And whatever the pills cost, that's what the pills cost. That's as simple as that.
Right.
Let's not talk about that part of the budget over which we have no control. Because you can't blow that. You just have to spend it.
Right.
I'm assuming that would be what you pay for utilities, rent, salaries, insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do you keep, to use the title of the program which you provided, blowing your budget and therefore not having what you need in case of an emergency?
Sure. Well,
which I hope is a more intelligent question.
well, I think it certainly sort of leads us to where, a lot of business owners or, marketing leaders within businesses spend a lot of their time, which is maximizing their return on budget for marketing activities. And that can include advertising. And in fact, that's normally the biggest expense within marketing activities. But there are also expenses like, software, technology, or data that you might use, or staff that you might use to run your team. But if we think about that largest expense around advertising, what we see is that a lot of companies that work with an ad agency, the ad agency's response to everything is spend more money, buy more ads, make some more ads. All of these things are, really cost a lot of money. But they don't necessarily take the time to think strategically about how to make the best investment of those dollars. And the key things that we see that really drive really astronomical change in the return on investment for advertising is, first, having a really powerful and differentiated positioning strategy. So what is it you're going to say in your ads? Because when you have a message that communicates to your specific marketplace, your unique capabilities that's different from your competitors, and gives them reasons to believe that, when you do that, all of your ads become 10 times more effective. And so you can see that you're not only creating awareness that you exist, but also you're generating demand for people to work with you. And we oftentimes see that companies that haven't taken the time to think through that differentiated positioning strategy are just sort of waving their hand like, we exist, or they're talking about sort of the benefits of the category that any of their competitors might say as well, which doesn't really generate demand for their business. It more sort of creates awareness that they exist. And so by really taking the time to understand your customer, the competitive landscape, and then your unique capabilities as a company, you can create this differentiated positioning strategy that then every ad you do buy performs that much more powerfully, which makes your ad budget much more efficient. The other thing that we see is that where you sort of focus these efforts is really important. And again, a lot of ad agencies will just say, well, let's buy ads where people are. And those sort of easy to identify go-to sources wind up having a lot of competition for the ad space, which means that drives up the rates for those particular ads. Whereas if you build off their understanding of the customer that you built in coming up with that differentiated positioning strategy, to really understand the journey that your decision makers are going through as they become aware of the problem, evaluate whether or not to solve the problem at all, look at different ways to solve the problem, look at different vendors that solve the problem in that way, evaluate you versus specific competitors. When you really understand that process and the informational needs they have at each step of that process and where they go to fulfill those informational needs. Do they go to a trade organization, or do they read a specific magazine, or do they have conversations with certain other people in the industry? That understanding of your customer's journey provides lots of really unique opportunities that are oftentimes 10 times less expensive than just buying ads. And so by combining those two things together, of having a much more powerful differentiated positioning strategy, and then a much more deep understanding of your customer's journey and all of the places you can influence their decision making along that journey, you can have a more powerful message that's communicated in a more efficient way that really delivers a much stronger impact for every dollar spent.
You mentioned something about ad agencies always saying to buy more ads, which translates to give us more business.
Sure.
Now, that raises the question of what is better, to work on a flat fee basis or a per hour or per something basis. What do you recommend?
So it depends, which is, a really
That's the lawyer answer to
that's a
everybody.
coy answer, right? What I typically say is what matters more than the fee structure is that you are sort of actively partnering with an external vendor. And that requires some, sort of marketing leadership within your company. And that's one of the things that we do at Modern Revenue Strategies is a lot of early stage companies, it's very expensive for them to, bring in a full-time marketing executive. And so they'll hire an agency and then just sort of abdicate everything to that agency. But you need someone to wrangle that agency on your behalf. And so we will oftentimes work as an outsourced, like a fractional chief marketing officer or marketing executive that can set those long-term goals for the company, identify the strategies and then the tactics that will achieve those goals on, sort of a 90-day timeline to get to that 2-year goal, and then 2-week sprints against that 90-day timeline, and then work with those ad agencies to help the company sort of achieve what they're looking for. So if you have someone who's sort of minding the store, if you will, or managing that agency, lots of different structures can work well. But the key is to have someone who really sort of owns the marketing objectives rather than just, well, let's buy more ads or even create more ads, which is another thing that agencies are focused on. It doesn't make them wrong to do that. An agency is a power tool, and a power tool is typically designed to do a specific job. A table saw cuts, and it can do a better job of cutting than many other tools in the shed, and it can accelerate the speed and accuracy with which you cut. But you need to be an expert in using a table saw, or you can lose a finger. And so that's oftentimes the way that we advise people to think about their relationships with agencies. If you can manage that relationship, it can be a very powerful accelerator for your business growth. But you shouldn't abdicate and assume that they're going to be thinking about growing your business. They're thinking about growing their business.
Everything you've been saying so far about growth is connected to marketing. Now, I realize marketing is your business, but what other ways besides marketing, what other factors besides marketing can contribute to the growth of a company?
Sure. Well, it's easy to confuse marketing with just bringing in new customers, whereas we sort of see it as really all things that impact your revenue. And so we talked about those sort of attraction systems of attracting more of the right prospects, and then acceleration systems of moving those deals through the sales pipeline, which is more of sort of a sales function. But the activation systems, so how you get more renewals, upsells, and referrals from your existing customers, can actually be one of the most important avenues for growth within B2B companies. And we oftentimes, we don't think of it as, sort of a sales funnel that, sort of starts wide and ends narrow anymore. We think of it as more like a bow tie that starts wide, comes to a point where you close your first sale, and then widens out again as you sort of increase your relationship with those companies and turn them into advocates and evangelists for you in the marketplace. And without systems in place to do that, most companies are just bashful about asking for that renewal or asking for that referral or raising their rates. Even though everyone knows inflation is going up, it would make sense that it would impact, sort of your business too. And so as you work with other companies, you need to sort of know how to do that in a way that doesn't sour the relationship, but instead grows it. The other thing too, that, marketing feeds into the business that helps to drive growth and revenues, is this real intelligence about what does the market want, need, and demand, and how are we different than our competitors in a way that is resonating with our customers. And so by really serving as that, pipeline for intelligence about the marketplace, marketing can be a really strategic function within your business of guiding new product innovation, and even, sort of how you deliver the products that you have, because you can lean in on what's really sort of appreciated and valued in the marketplace.
I just want to explain, if you caught it or if any of our viewers catch it, when you said bow tie, I started to laugh because I thought you had said Botox.
Oh, no.
And I couldn't figure out what in the world you were trying to get at. But anyways, there was a time years ago, which you may or may not remember, when there was a very popular ad in newspapers and magazines. And the heading would be a 3-letter word, SEX. And then immediately following it, it said, "Now that I have your attention." And then it would be a pitch for anything you can imagine. Why no one got a trademark or copyright on sex, now that I have your attention, I have no idea. But it was a simple way to grab attention. Today, there is so much noise. My answer to grabbing a potential client's attention is to mail them a postcard. How do you recommend to clients to grab their potential client's attention?
Sure. Well, it all comes back to that, sort of deep, rich understanding of your customer, that differentiated positioning strategy, and then again, that customer journey. And so if you think about that customer journey of becoming aware of a problem, deciding whether or not to solve that problem, becoming aware of different solution providers, we see that companies that are the most successful are the ones that really focus in their messaging on that particular stage of the journey. And so not let me sell you on why I'm the best company out there, but instead, let me talk to you about why you should be solving this problem. And then sort of building that relationship and that rapport there. And then let me talk to you about why this particular way of solving the problem is the right way. It's going to make the biggest impact on your business. Now, among all of the people that solve it this way, let me tell you why we're the best. And not trying to accomplish all three objectives in one sort of messaging strategy. And we worked with a company that was providing a technology for advertising agencies in buying sort of ads. It was an ad platform to help them do a better job of buying advertising. And through sort of understanding their specific the customer, that decision maker, those stakeholders, we realized that a lot of people at ad agencies spend a lot of long hours in the office. And so don't get a lot of chances to get out for food. So food was always an appreciated gift. And so we coordinated a campaign where we baked 100 custom cakes with the logo of the agency on it. The other thing that agencies are always concerned about is technology providers that are trying to make themselves look good instead of making the agency look good. And so we talked about how we were going to put you into the spotlight and really sort of shine the light on your capabilities and enable your capabilities so that we would be in the background and be that sort of technology enabler, the intel inside, if you will, for sort of your computer. And then we coordinated that with an outbound calling campaign, an email campaign that aligned with a press release about how we had some new features that were specifically designed for working with ad agencies. So all these things came together for a fraction of what we could have spent on advertising and a fraction of what sort of some of our competitors were spending to just sort of buy ads that talked about the product itself. And because we had this sort of really unique understanding of our audience, their specific needs, their specific sort of life and context, we were able to cut through in a way that made a much bigger impact for much less investment.
One of the things you mentioned was raising prices. Now, raising prices would seem to be the simplest way to grow your business, assuming that you don't lose any clients. But you're going to lose clients anyways. So growing your business, and this is something I'm stealing from a book that I ghostwritten by me. The author pointed out that raising prices changes your clientele. And you go from being a discount outfit to being a premier seller of whatever. So you get a whole new class of clients. Is that always a good thing?
It can be.
Or when can you, I should ask differently, because obviously it's not always going to be a good thing. But how do you know when it's not going to be a good thing?
So there's actually a few kind of standard ways to kind of calculate this. And we're big believers in sort of using data to facilitate decisions, but not necessarily to make the decisions for you. And so oftentimes what we'll do is we'll say, well, let's, take all of your customers and what's your current, billing from them, and then give each of them a score of the likelihood of them churning if you were to raise your rate, by 10% versus 20% versus 30% or whatever it might be. And so you can have different likelihoods of them leaving versus the different, change in revenues that you would get if you were to raise by those rates. You can actually run that calculus out and say, well, if all of them churn that we expect, but we keep the ones that we expect and we get this sort of rate, is that a net positive for us or not? And so there's some pretty simple calculus to do there that then allows you to have a data point in your decision making to say, is now the right time to move into being more of a premium offering? The other thing to think about too is, price is only one part of your brand. And, in marketing, you talk about price being, it's the price, the promotions, which includes advertising, the place where you sell or the sort of experience of working with you, and then the people. Those 4 Ps are kind of the pillars of building your brand in the mind of the customer. And so price is one of those, but, does your product and the place you sell it and the people that support it, do they support a premium position in the marketplace as well? Or are you just, trying to slap a bigger sticker on the same, sort of discount product? If you've truly built a product and the people and the place and environment of buying it that justifies a higher price, then the price makes it really sort of helps bring that home to the customer that they're willing to pay a premium because they're getting a premium product. Whereas if you just put a premium price on something that's not a premium experience, you're unlikely to be successful.
Let's go back. We've got about 5 minutes left. Let's go back to the budget.
Sure.
And I was at a conference is an exaggeration. I was at a meeting where the guest speaker was an IRS agent. And really nice guy, great sense of humor. He said, you know, if I go around this room and I were to ask each and every one of you how much money you have in the bank right now, how many of you could tell me within a few $1,000s? And there were like 6 of us who raised our hands. And then he looked at me and he said, Bruce, how much money do you have in the bank? And I looked at him without batting an eye, and I said, I'm not telling an IRS agent how much money I have in the bank. I
That's
may
right.
be crazy, but I'm not stupid. And that was fine. In fact, afterwards, he told me that based on what he had seen of my interaction with other people, he figured I'd say something like that. And that killed any tension that was possible. But his point was well taken. Most people do not know how much money they have in the bank, which would seem to me to be the most fundamental question about the understanding of a budget. Now, I was a judge on New York Public Library, what do you call it? Business plan competition. And one of the plans was for someone who had absolutely no education in the field, no training in the field, no experience in the field, except for doing her own books. And she wanted to start a financial consulting firm, accounting firm, that would do both accrual and cash basis. So I immediately Googled if it was possible, and it is possible. And there was a list of all sorts of different criteria that the IRS has for doing an accrual and cash basis budget. And there was no way she would not be able to do it. I wrote down, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. We should not support this. My question for you is, what are the basic fundamentals that a business owner has to know about a budget in order for the budget to be a tool that they can use to grow their business?
Yeah, so the way that we approach it is, primarily focused on budget for growth and budgeting for growth. And we use a pretty standard, sort of framework of thinking, well, what is the expected return on investment and over what time period? So that we can then make a evaluation of, should we invest our dollars here or our dollars there? And if we can look at, and there's some pretty standard accounting, net present value of funds kind of calculations where you can say, if I invest my dollars here and I'll get, a 5% return, but fast, versus invest my dollars here and I'll get a 10% return, but over a much longer amount of time. Well, you can do some calculus there to make some decisions. But for us, as we think about budgeting for growth, that's the way that we sort of drive that thinking, is to think, well, what's the return on the investment over time? We also typically try to think in terms of balancing both short-term objectives of let's get sales to keep the lights on, and long-term objectives of let's build our brand so that we're generating, demand for the future, and really thinking through where the company is and their current sort of, life cycle, as to where it's going to be more important to invest those dollars.
Mark, we're just about out of time, so I want to share with our viewers your contact information.
Yeah.
And I will make us magically appear. And I have one final question for you. Is there anything that I did not ask you that you wish I had asked? And if I had asked, what would you have said?
Sure. Well, so we've been talking a lot about, sort of creating systems for building revenue for businesses and ways that you can do it sort of within a budget. And I wrote a lot about that in a book that I published earlier this year. It's specifically designed for B2B tech services, SaaS companies that are dealing with those long sales cycles for large contracts with complex buying committees. But for your listeners, I'm actually going to give a free download of that book at modernrevenuestrategies.com/free download. Not only will they get a complete version of the book, but it'll also include a number of templates and calculators that they can use in sort of crafting this go-to-market strategy and ways that they can save money as they try to grow.
Mark, thank you so much. This has been informative, educational, and fun. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Bruce.
I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching. And as always, please stay focused on success.